Well, so you're trying to wrap your head around Bitcoin, huh? It's a
Yeah.
wild world out there. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's an expert.
Yeah.
It's like, where do you even begin?
Exactly.
That's what we're here for, right? To dive into these different perspectives and try to make sense of it all.
Yeah, cut through the noise.
Exactly. So today we're checking out this YouTube video, Utility and Other Money Myths Debunked. Have you seen this one?
I have, yeah. It's a good one.
It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
The host, Oliver Velez, he's got this whole vibe, lemongrass tea, shout-outs to his international audience, even rocks some cool glasses for his migraines. But don't let the chill exterior fool Yucky.
He brings the heat.
Oh, he brings it. And he goes right for the jugular with one of the most common criticisms of Bitcoin, this idea that it has no utility.
Yeah, which is a pretty common argument against it.
Right. Like on the surface, it makes sense.
Yeah.
What can you actually do with Bitcoin?
Right.
But Velez flips the script. He says sound money shouldn't have utility.
It's a bold claim.
Yeah, it's like, hold on. Isn't money supposed to be, useful?
That's the traditional thinking.
Right.
But Velez challenges that. He asks, do you really want your money to have a part-time job? Like, on top of holding its value, it's also being used for all these other things.
Right.
And those uses can actually end up messing with its value.
Yeah, it's like that thing about gold being used in jewelry and dentistry. Like, what if people suddenly stopped buying gold necklaces?
Exactly. The price of gold could plummet, even though its fundamental value, its ability to store value, hasn't really changed.
It's like gold's still gold.
Yeah, right. And Velez's point is that your money should be reliable, like a rock, not subject to the whims of fashion or, how many fillings people are getting.
Okay, I like that. So he's saying money should be boring.
In a way, yes. It's not supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to be reliable.
So it's like that analogy he uses in the video. He compares Bitcoin to an empty vault.
I like that analogy. It drives the point home.
It's brilliant. It's not about what you can do with the vault. It's about the security and scarcity it represents. And that, I think, is a really key concept to grasp when we're talking about Bitcoin.
It is, and it ties into another point he makes about the evolution of money. We've come a long way from using actual tools as currency, right?
Oh, yeah. Seashells, beads, all that jazz.
Right. And then we moved on to precious metals like gold and silver. And if you think about it, the less useful something was for other things, the more valuable it became as money.
Okay, I'm following you.
He actually uses a chart in the video. It's a spectrum. On one end, you have something like air, super useful, obviously, but it's everywhere, so it's free.
Right.
And then as you move along the spectrum, you get to things that are less and less useful for anything other than just being money. And guess what sits right there at the top?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. It's like humanity's been on this quest for the perfect money, something that holds its value over time, something scarce, something untainted by the instability of direct utility.
So essentially, money should be...
Useless.
Well, not useless.
Okay.
But more like its primary function should be to store a value, not to be a commodity itself. Okay, interesting. So is he saying utility is totally irrelevant for a form of money to succeed?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like we need at least some utility to make it work in the real world, right?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's one we'll definitely want to explore further as we continue this deep dive.
All right, so stick with us. Because Velez doesn't stop there. He tackles another big Bitcoin myth, the idea that it's not a real medium of exchange.
And he does it in his own way, He's like, when's the last time you used gold to buy something?
He got me there. I mean, I'm not exactly walking around with gold bars in my pocket. But, okay, so we don't see gold being used in everyday transactions. Does that mean it's lost its value as money?
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, just because we're not using it to buy groceries doesn't mean it's irrelevant, right? Gold is still seen as this ultimate store of value, this safe haven asset.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
It's the same with Bitcoin, right?
So he's drawing a parallel between gold and Bitcoin.
Exactly. Bitcoin, it's still early days. Right now its main use case is as that long-term store of value.
Not so much for buying a cup of coffee yet.
Well, maybe someday. But Velez actually brings up an interesting point about this. He talks about Costco selling gold.
Costco, like the bulk buying store.
Exactly. And he asks, if gold is so valuable, why are they trying to get rid of it?
Huh, good point. It's like, if it's such a great investment, shouldn't they be holding on to it?
It's a really clever way of illustrating how an asset can kind of shift through different stages of monetary evolution. He talks about these 4 stages, right? Trinket, or collectible, store of value, medium of exchange, and then unit of account.
So where does Bitcoin fit in all of this right now?
He argues that Bitcoin is transitioning from that initial trinket phase to the store of value stage.
And that's significant because...
Because remember how we get so passionate about not rushing the medium of exchange part?
Oh, yeah. He's like, don't rush it.
Right. He believes the store of value phase is where the real magic happens in terms of growth potential.
Okay, so unpack that for me a little bit. What's the difference between those stages, and why does it matter to someone like me who's just trying to, like, wrap their head around all of this?
Sure. Imagine it's like investing in a startup, right? You get in early, the company's not profitable yet.
Okay, but you see the potential.
Exactly. That early stage, that's like the store value phase.
Yeah.
Then, as the company grows, starts making money, becomes more established, that's like transitioning to the medium of exchange phase.
So with the medium of exchange, it's less about those, like, wild price swings and more about stability.
Exactly. More people are using it for everyday transactions.
It's becoming more mainstream.
Right, but the potential for those, like, exponential gains might be diminished.
It's like the early bird gets the worm kind of thing.
Kind of, yeah. And Velez seems to be saying, with Bitcoin, we're still in that early bird phase, and that's exciting.
It is exciting. But he doesn't stop there. He takes it a step further and starts talking about Bitcoin as this escape from modern-day plantations. Modern-day plantations. Okay, now we're getting into some interesting territory.
Yeah, this is where things get a little intense.
Oh, spicy.
We have to be careful here, because we're
Yeah.
walking a fine line. We're trying to understand his perspective, not necessarily endorse it.
Exactly, exactly. So break it down for me. What's this whole plantation analogy about?
So Velez is basically saying that with our traditional money, the U.S. dollar,
The one we all know and sometimes love.
right, he's saying that we're all basically at the mercy of, governments and central banks.
They're calling the shots.
Right. They control how much money is printed. They set interest rates, all of that.
And it's that whole thing about inflation, right? Like, our money's constantly losing value.
Exactly. And Velez connects that directly to this idea of control, right? Like, it's this system that's rigged against the average person. You work hard, you save your money, but it's like you're on a treadmill, right?
You never get ahead.
Exactly. And Bitcoin, in his view, is like this escape hatch.
It's like he's saying, take control of your own financial destiny.
Yeah, and he's
darn.
not subtle about it either. He ends the video with this powerful call to action: stack harder.
Which basically means buy more Bitcoin.
Pretty much. And look, I get it. The plantation analogy might be a little out there for some people.
It's provocative, for sure.
But it does make you think, right? It highlights this very real concern that a lot of people have about the current financial system, this feeling of being stuck, of not having control.
So where does this leave us? What are people supposed to take away from all of this?
I think the key takeaway is that Velez really challenges you to think differently about money. He's not afraid to be controversial, but he backs up his arguments with, historical examples, economic principles, all of that.
He's done his homework.
Exactly. He makes you question the assumptions that we often take for granted about money and the financial system. Now, does that mean you have to agree with everything he says? Of course not. But it's valuable to hear these different perspectives.
Absolutely. It's like, take what resonates with you, do your own research, and then decide what makes sense for you.
Exactly. Because ultimately, knowledge is power, right? The more informed we are, the better equipped we are to make smart decisions about our financial future.
Couldn't agree more.